David was a young but a very angry boy. He lost his anger at very small things. Whenever David was angry, he said very bad things to everybody. He used foul language and did not think before he spoke. His parents, teachers, and friends kept asking him to try to control his anger, but this made him angrier. He would just stomp off from the discussion saying, "Oh, stop nagging me. You are making me angry now." One day, Dad got a wooden plank, some nails, and a hammer for David. "David, I have got something for you. Come here," said David's father. David came running to his father as he, like all other kids, loved surprises. But when he saw the things, he was surprised. "What's this for, Dad?" asked David. "Well, David, this will help you to control your anger," replied Dad. The moment he heard the mention of his anger, he started losing it again. Dad saw that David had started losing his anger, so he smiled and said, "Every time you lose your anger, David, strike a nail in the wooden plank." By the time Dad finished what he wanted to say, David had already lost his anger. He stomped off with the wooden plank and started striking a nail in it. Now, whenever David felt angry, whenever he came across something he didn't like or someone who didn't listen or act according to him, he struck a nail on the plank. This went on and on and on. Soon the plank was full of nails because David was angry with every situation and person around for one reason or the other. Then one day, Dad went to David and, taking the plank in his hands, started taking out the nails one by one. David, curious, kept looking at what his dad did. Once all the nails were out, Dad said, "Look at these holes, David. Each time you struck a nail in the plank represents each time you said something bad to somebody in anger. Each bad word left a hole in somebody's heart. These holes cannot be repaired, and neither can the ones that you created, David. This is the reason why we should not get angry and say things that we are not supposed to say." "Oh my God! I never realized that I was hurting someone so bad, Dad. From now on, I promise that I will try to control my anger so that I do not hurt anybody," said David. "But Dad, what are the ways in which I can control my anger?" asked David. Dad answered, "Well, first of all, every time you lose your anger, count till 20 slowly before reacting. If this does not help, then start thinking happy thoughts. Alternatively, you can try to move away from the thought that made you angry. Try these small things and I am sure that you will be able to control your anger." David was surprised that controlling his anger could be so easy. He said, "I will definitely try these techniques, Dad," and hugged his dad. Everybody was surprised to see the change in David. He was more patient and had started treating everybody nicely. He had stopped using foul language and was polite to everyone. All this happened because he had learned to control his anger and was thus consequently happier. Emily is a strong girl, but lots of things scare her. One thing that scares her the most is darkness. Emily loves sleeping with her elder sister. One day, she told her that she was leaving for a camp, and Emily panicked as this meant that she had to sleep alone. However, Emily's mom comforted her. "Don't worry, sweetheart. You can sleep with your little brother, David." That night, Mom and Dad had to go to a party. They called Grandpa to take care of the kids. Till the time Grandpa came, Emily had to take care of David. Mom and Dad left, and it started growing really dark. Suddenly, the weather turned bad. Rain and thunder scared Emily even more. She thought she heard some noise outside the window, but she was too scared to go out. And then power went off. Seeing this, David started crying. She tried to comfort David, but nothing helped. Emily looked at the window curtains and felt as if a big ghost was hiding behind them. Suddenly, the door started banging loudly, and Emily started crying. She took David, rushed to the bedroom, and hid under the bed. After a few minutes, the power came back. She heard someone break the window. David and Emily rushed downstairs. It was Grandpa. Grandpa hugged both of the kids and asked Emily, "Why didn't you open the door when the power went off? I had been standing outside all this while. I even called your name, but nobody answered. I was scared of darkness and thought that a ghost was outside the door and the window," said Emily. Grandpa laughed aloud and said, "Oh dear, the only place that ghosts live is in your mind." Then Grandpa showed the kids around the house to confirm that there was no ghost or monster. For the first time, Emily felt like a stupid girl. "Now, listen carefully, my girl," said Grandpa. "You are a strong girl. Everyone appreciates you for your intelligence. But if you let stupid things like darkness scare you, people will only laugh at you." Emily nodded. "Use logic," continued Grandpa, "whenever something scares you." "I can do that," smiled Emily. "If logic doesn't help, think of something funny, like a clown. Visualize happy and cheerful moments and everything will be fine," suggested Grandpa. Emily understood what he was trying to say, and from that day on, no power cut or dark room could scare her. Jackson, Tyler, and Luke were the best of friends. They were also good at sports. Tyler, Jackson, and Luke always played together. They were particularly fond of playing football. Evidently, they were the best players of the class team, and their coach too was very happy with their performance. Once, the coach announced an inter-school football competition. Everyone was excited. The coach made all the boys perform on the field to select the final team members. Tyler was announced the captain of the team, and his friends Jackson and Luke were very happy about it. Soon, the practice sessions started. The three friends and the rest of the team members worked really hard. They were confident that they will beat the other team at the competition. In fact, the trio was the hope of the entire school. The day of the competition came. The trio and the other team members gave their best. However, they didn't know that the other team too was very well prepared. Unfortunately, Tyler and his team lost the game. Everyone became utterly disappointed in them. Next day, when the boys reached the school, they had to face criticism and scorn from a lot of students. Some even called them a sham, while others predicted that none of the old boys would be seen in the next football team. This was a major blow to their confidence. They didn't know what to do next. During lunch break, the coach called all the team members. The boys feared that it was the end of their football game. Nonetheless, all the team members gathered in the gym. With a stern look, the coach said, "It is very sad and disappointing that you boys lost the match. Tomorrow, I want to see each one of you with a write-up on any one of these personalities: Henry Ford, Beethoven, Walt Disney, Charles Darwin, and Albert Einstein." The boys felt awkward but did as the coach commanded them to do. The next day, all the boys gathered with their write-ups. The coach called each one of them to read out aloud about those famous personalities. After all the boys had finished, the coach asked them, "Now, I want you to think about these personalities and find out what is common in them." All the boys started thinking till one of them stood up and said, "All of them are famous and were very successful in their field." "Yes," said the coach. "That is one part of their life. But there is another important part that you are missing." Everyone was surprised to hear that. All the men belonged to different fields. What else could be similar in their life apart from success? Suddenly, Tyler stood up and said, "Sir, all of them had seen failure at some point in their life." Henry Ford failed and went broke 5 times before he finally succeeded. Yes, continued Jackson. Beethoven handled his violin awkwardly. His teachers thought he was hopeless as a composer. Similarly, Walt Disney was fired by a newspaper editor for lack of ideas. But later, after many failures, he went on to build Disneyland. Absolutely right, continued Luke. Charles Darwin gave up his medical career and was taught by his father as a child with low intellect. Likewise, Albert Einstein started speaking and writing very late. He was called mentally slow by his teachers. The coach smiled at the 3 boys and patted their backs. "You are right, my boys," he said. "All the great people have faced disappointment and failure at some point or the other in their life. But those failures didn't stop them. They bounced back with even more energy and vigor. They worked hard on their weak points and emerged successful. Even discouraging words couldn't stop them." All the boys were happy to hear this. The coach then announced that there was going to another inter-school match after a few months. This cheered up all the boys. They discussed the reasons of their failure in the previous match and started working hard on their skills. The next match resulted in a draw. This didn't discourage the boys at all. Again, they worked on their skills and got prepared for a third match. Indeed, they succeeded the third time. The boys had learned to learn from their mistakes and bounce back. Everyone loved Robert. He was rich, had expensive toys, wore branded clothes, and was very popular at school. Almost every child in Robert's class wanted to be his friend. They were too impressed by his clothes and wanted to play with his expensive toys. Indeed, his big mansion too was a sight to see. However, not everyone could be Robert's friend. "I have certain standards," he would say when branding someone as his friend. "I can't really make anyone my friend just like that." As a result, those who managed to become his friend felt like they were being honored. It was the start of a new session at school. As happened every year, there were few new admissions in the class. One of them was Thomas. He was smart, intelligent, and fun to be around with. After the first unit test, he became the talk of the class for standing first in all the subjects. Suddenly, the focus shifted from Robert to Thomas. Many students wanted to be his friend. Unlike Robert, Thomas had no policy to call someone his friend. Anybody who wanted to be his friend was welcome. One day, Robert's best friend Austin said to him, "I think you should invite Thomas to the weekend party you are planning. He is really smart and cool. Robert thought about it for a while and said, "But do you think he will fit in with us? Look at the kind of things he brings to school. His substandard lunch box and bag, cheap pencils and notebooks, and the kind of lunch his mother sends him to school. They all tell me he can't match our group." Austin smiled and said, "Oh, please, he is a nice chap to hang out with. I often see him play football after school." Since Austin insisted too much, Robert reluctantly agreed to invite him. At the weekend party, Thomas showed up and quickly became the life of the party. However, Robert couldn't take him anymore. "I told you, he won't match our standards," complained Robert to Austin. "But everyone is enjoying with him," said Austin. "That's because he is giving everyone cheap fun, just like the cheap clothes he is wearing. My party doesn't include roadside wanderers. And just what did he bring to the party? A train picked from a street shop. He is a miser, a cheap Scrooge. I don't want to see him around my house ever again." Austin had nothing to say. After all, it was Robert's house and party. Soon after that day, Robert started calling Thomas Scrooge. Indeed, at the parties at school, Thomas couldn't contribute much. His clothes were not very good, and neither did he have expensive toys or gadgets to show off. Gradually, many kids changed their opinion about Thomas. They called him miser, cheapskate, Scrooge, and what not. Most of them did so as they feared Robert's reaction if they befriended Thomas. As time passed by, Thomas too started losing confidence. He had very few friends now. One day, Austin approached him and invited him to his birthday party. Thomas was surprised. "But why me?" he asked. "Just come," Austin said with a smile and left. At the party, everyone was surprised to see Thomas. He showed up with an expensive remote-controlled car for Austin. "You didn't really have to bring this," said Austin when he saw the car. "I like you for who you are and not for your clothes or toys or house or car." Then he turned to his group of friends and said, "I like Thomas and am not ashamed to call him my friend. It is not right to judge people from their looks or belongings." Everybody wanted to be Thomas' friend till the time no one knew that he wasn't very rich. It's just not fair to ignore him just because Robert or someone else doesn't like him. Everyone in the room was surprised to see Austin speak like this. Friends, all I want to say is that before judging people, just remind yourself that not everyone has had the same set of luck and opportunities that you had. It was then that Thomas revealed that he too belonged to a financially good family. However, his father decided to adopt two orphan babies whom he found one night on the road. Someone had left them there to die. On hearing this, everyone held him to a high position. Even Robert hugged him. From then on, there was no elite group of friends. Everyone was equal and non-judgmental. Mandy was a conceited little girl. She had every reason to be, as she was the star of a popular TV show. Mandy had very few friends at school. She always remained big-headed and boasted about being on the television. The other kids in the class listened to her stories and fancied her luxurious and fame-filled life. It was the same with Mandy's cousins. They too couldn't speak much before her, as she often bragged about her fans and accomplishments at such a young age. To make matters worse, her parents too were submissive before her, as they feared that they might offend her in some way or the other. Mandy believed and openly said that her life was beautiful because of the fame and money she had. For others, she said, "They live such normal lives, so boring and not at all beautiful." One day, Mandy's cousin Emma introduced her to her new friend Jacob. He was charming, handsome, and full of humor. Jacob and Emma really enjoyed being with each other. At first, Mandy tried to show off, as was her habit, but soon she realized that Jacob wasn't interested in her stories at all. For Mandy, Jacob became a target that she wanted to achieve at all costs. One day, Emma invited Mandy to a picnic. Mandy instantly agreed when she heard that Jacob was going to be there. However, suddenly her manager reminded her that she had to shoot on the day of the picnic. Reluctantly, Mandy had to drop the idea of the picnic. After a few days, Emma invited her for a movie with Jacob. Again, Mandy had to refuse, as she had to go for an interview. For a third time, Emma invited her to a party. Once again, Mandy had to let it pass, as she had to shoot an extra episode for her show. However, luck favored Mandy after a long time, and she happened to catch up with Emma and Jacob at an outing. There, she observed that Jacob was getting along with Emma very well. This infuriated Mandy. The moment she got a chance, she took Jacob by hand and tried to have a friendly chat with him alone. At first, she bragged about her career. But when that didn't seem to work, she started criticizing Emma and her ordinary life. She went on and on until Jacob stopped her. "You seem to have a weird conception about life, dear girl," said Jacob with an attitude. "Let me tell you something. I believe it's not our life, but it's your life that sucks. No one had said such a thing to Mandy before. She left the place with tears in her eyes and rushed back home. When Grandma saw Mandy so depressed and hurt, she asked her the matter. On hearing what Jacob had said, Grandma replied, "Well, my child, he couldn't be more right." Mandy was surprised to hear that from her grandma. Grandma smiled and asked her a question. "When was the last time that you felt truly free, happy, and beautiful? Can you confidently say that you and your life will be beautiful even without the show that you do on the television?" Mandy was confused. She didn't know what to say. Then Grandma said, "My child, beauty is all around us. It is in the life that God has given us. We just have to see it. It is beautiful when a mother scolds her child for doing something bad and then hugs the same child to kiss him. Both the anger and affection of elders are beautiful. It is beautiful when you can spend time with your loved ones and sing and dance and play as much as you want. No money can match that." Mandy listened to her grandma attentively while she continued. "It is beautiful to enjoy a healthy life, and at the same time, it is beautiful to enjoy a relaxed old age when you have friends and family around that love you. Look around and see how beautifully God has created each and every aspect of nature. Can you do that?" Mandy was speechless. She realized that till now she had been holding on to a very different concept of beauty. She had been running after superficial beauty that didn't really exist. That experience changed Mandy for the rest of her life. She continued to appear on the television as a star. However, for her friends and family, she became a normal kid. No one could call her conceited anymore. She decided to prioritize things in her life and gave the upper hand to her personal life that truly showed how beautiful life was. She started hanging out with friends, and her parents too became parents in true sense of the word. Gradually, she realized that it was her family and friends that made her life beautiful. Hi, I am Michael. I live with my parents, grandparents, and brother. I don't understand the point of having such a big family. Living in a big family is a headache. I am never alone. There is always someone or the other to bother me. Once it so happened that my family planned a picnic with my cousins and uncles and aunts. I thought it would be a nice chance to spend some time with my friends. So I told them that I I would stay back to complete my homework. My folks were about to cancel the plan, but somehow I managed to make them go. Finally, after a long time, I was alone at home. I started calling my friends to see who was free for an outing. After around 10 phone calls, I came upon John, who was free for the day. The rest of them were out with their families. So, we decided to go to a nearby lake. We picked our bicycles and set off. As luck would have it, I met with an accident on the way. One moment, I was in terrible pain, and the next, I fainted. When I opened eyes, I was in a hospital with a fractured leg and some bandages here and there. John hadn't hurt himself, so he called my parents and told them about the accident. Soon I was at home in my bed. I knew everyone was angry that I had lied to them. Mom did ask me about the homework, but Dad told her to keep quiet for some time. From that day on, I saw a different kind of family. Mom cooked for me whatever I wanted and made sure that I ate my medicines on time. Dad brought me magazines, books, and video games to keep me busy. Whenever it pained somewhere, Grandma would gently massage me, while Grandpa would tell me heroic stories of his younger spirits to cheer me up. Whenever he was free, my little brother would play a board game with me. That little chap would do anything I asked him to do. At weekend, my uncles and aunts brought me gifts and flowers. My cousin Ryan, who was in the same class as I was, brought me homework from school to keep me updated. My other cousins told me jokes and stories to keep me in good humor. 2 months passed like this, and I didn't feel bored or like a handicap even for a single day. It was then that I realized the importance of family. None of my friends were there to support me. I can't imagine what would have happened to me if I was all alone. I apologized to Mom about lying to her the other day. She kissed me and said, "It's okay. I know you have learnt your lesson." I thank God for giving me such a loving family. I love my family so much that I can't live without it. Daniel was a nervous boy. He was scared of problematic situations. However, life is full of them. Whenever a problem arose in Daniel's life, he would simply start crying. Seeing him in tears, his mother would help him out. However, this made him more dependent and less courageous. His father didn't like this at all, but there was hardly anything he could do. One day, he saw Daniel crying. He went to him and asked the matter. Daniel told him that he had borrowed his friend James' bicycle, but someone stole it while he was in the park. "Only Mom can help me out of this," said Daniel with tears in his eyes. "I'm sure she can," comforted his father. "But you can also solve the problem on your own." "How?" asked Daniel. "Okay," said father. "Now stop crying and listen to me carefully. To solve any problem, first identify it and list the options for fixing it. You lost your friend's bike. What do you think you can do to fix it?" Daniel thought for a while and then laid down his options. "I can stay away from my friend, or I can lie to him that one of my friends lost it, or I can give him my remote controlled plane. He really likes it." "Okay," said father. "It is good you have some options to fix the problem. Now, you need to rate the options. Write all your options on paper and rate them according to their being ethical, rightful, and honest." Daniel did as his father told him. He rated the 3 options he had and was left with just the last option. Avoiding his friend or lying to him would be disastrous and would hurt his feelings a lot. So, the only option that was left with him was to offer his friend the remote controlled plane that he liked a lot. Daniel told the option he picked to his father. It was the hardest one, but was the only suitable option that seemed fit. Seeing this, father comforted him. "Son, it is always hard to do the right thing, but in the end, it pays." The next day, Daniel went to his friend and told him all about the bike. He apologized to him and offered him his remote control plane instead of the bike. However, his friend was stubborn. He wanted his bike back, no matter what. This meant there was a bigger problem for Daniel. He went to his father and the two started thinking again. This time, Daniel came up with a unique solution. He offered to buy his friend the same kind of bike. The only thing he asked from him for was time. He promised to buy him the bike after saving his pocket money. His friend agreed to the solution. Encouraged by this, Daniel started saving money. He even did small jobs for his neighbors, like walking the dog every morning, fetching milk from the market daily, etc., to earn money in a short period of time. Soon, he had enough money. Daniel bought the bike and thanked his father for helping him solve the problem on his own. His father smiled and said, "The lesson is not over, son. After fixing the problem, You need to analyze what led to the problem in the first place. My forgetfulness, replied Daniel shyly. It's good that you know it. So, from now on, I am sure you will take corrective steps to ensure that you won't repeat the mistake again. Sure, Dad, said Daniel. You have taught me the lesson of a lifetime. From then on, whenever Daniel faced any problem, he followed the I or pi rule. First, he identified the problem. Next, he listed the options to fix it. Then, he rated the options. Next, he picked the most suitable option. Then, he implemented the solution. And finally, he evaluated the whole situation to avoid the problem from cropping again. Wendy was a little girl. She had very few friends, as she was always sad. Lots of things made Wendy sad. She would try to keep a smiling face among her friends and family, but nothing helped. It started the day her best friend Linda left neighborhood and changed school. Wendy and Linda were neighbors. They went to the same school and were even in the same class. Linda's father had a transferable job. One day, Linda gave Wendy the news. Dad is shifting to Toronto. Wendy was heartbroken, while Linda was comfortable about the whole thing. You must learn to move on, she suggested Wendy and went back home. From that day on, Wendy started keeping sad all the time. Her parents tried to cheer her up, but nothing helped. At school, Wendy missed her best friend Linda. Her other friends tried to talk to her, but Wendy kept to herself. She never took part in the games and simply refused to go out with her other friends. Gradually, Wendy was left all alone. She ate her lunch alone, studied alone, and went back home alone. Some of the girls even started making fun of her. That made her sadder. Seeing Wendy sad all the time, her mother started worrying. She didn't know what to do. She wanted to help Wendy, but the poor girl was never in a mood to talk. After school, she would go straight to her room, change her clothes, have lunch, and sleep. Then she would get up, do her homework, have dinner, and go back to bed again. That was her daily routine. Whenever anyone wanted to talk with her, she will simply say that she was busy. One day, Aunt Maria came to see Wendy. She knew what Wendy was going through. After dinner, Wendy bid everyone good night and went to her room. Seeing the right opportunity, Aunt Maria went to Wendy's room. She was amazed to see that Wendy wasn't sleeping. She was simply lying in bed and crying. Aunt Maria gently stroked her head and asked her what was bothering her. At first, Wendy lied that it was nothing. But there was just no arguing with Aunt Maria. Then she said, I feel sad all the time. I don't know what to do. After Linda left, I lost all my friends. Now, nobody wants to talk with me. I feel lonely and want to cry all the time. Aunt Maria smiled and said, So, what's the problem? You can remove sadness from your life. It is easy. But how? Asked Wendy. It is simple, smiled Aunt Maria. Just feel happy. It is okay if Linda went. But life doesn't stop. Make new friends. Go out with them and have a good time. Write down your feelings. Read funny books. Get up early every morning and go out to have fresh air. Learn to forgive and get over things. Nobody can make you sad without your permission. Right, said Wendy. All this while, I had happiness inside me, but didn't know about it. From now on, I won't let stupid things like these make me sad. Aunt Maria smiled and the two went out for a nice cup of ice cream. Wendy had hearty laugh in months.